Okay, so before we get into the activities today, we are going to have a look at the Brifra, Shanokal, and Nahnakancha. So our Briher on Tachtan show. So the first one we have is Raunik. Okay, so Raunik literally looks like that in the past tense. So Raunik me, I chose. But then in the Amshire, Loifruk, it's Raunium, no Raunian, to no she, no she, and then around no wig. Okay, may. So I will choose. Then Pyok is a great one as well. Okay, so Pyok is to pick. So Pyok me suase. I picked it up. So Fyok snam shakacha, Pyokum, like I pick, no Pyokin, and then Pyok fi. And then to slip, so Schlaunig, okay, Schlaunig, I think it would be a good one for the Shrapik door. So a Schlaunig, Schlaunium, and then Schlaunoi, so I'm sure Oshtanok, okay. Now, Shanok and the Shachtana is one that is a little bit different again, okay, so it's a really nice one and I think you can do it if you were to talk about maybe like going traveling or things like that, or maybe your holidays, or doesn't even always have to do with traveling. It can be like anything in relation to like, obviously doing different things within your life and stuff. So being shuluk, shkeluk, okay? And that means travelers tell tales, or travelers have tales to tell, okay? So it means like all the different things you do in your life, it's all stories that you're able to tell, okay? So variety of this is the spice of life and all of that. And then the Nahna Kancha is Ohus Gadzera on lay. So from the start to the end of the day. That is a really nice phrase. Again, can be brought into so many different aspects, like your ashta or your oral or your shra. So again, it's worth knowing. So in you, so Gracie, just finish them. So Cunnisa Diary live on Tacht and Shikacha. So how did you get on this week? So we are going to just do some keshtana, okay, with the wheel, which we did last week. Okay, so I'm just going to see how you get on, right? So we're just going to do 3 kesh in yo. Okay, so let's see what comes up first. And again, you can just write in the Zoom box. Okay, right, nice easy one. Well, easier than most. So cada capan tu fui guelga. So Gracie, just a sentence no go. Fui cada capan tu fui guelga. And no be borha fui litra. Don't worry about spelling. Oh, you can just write them here, Gracie. Sorry. In the Zoom chat, yeah, where you've wrote it there. Just saves us going over and back. Okay, so today we're going to learn about the noun and the article and what happens when something is masculine and what happens when something is feminine. Okay, so the first thing I need you to make a note of is the word animokal means noun. Okay, and then the word antalt means the article. Okay, but in simple terms, it means, so when I'm talking about the article in English, I'm essentially just talking about on. So for example, let me think of a word. So filiocht, right, is poetry. But when I say on iliocht, it's their poetry, and then it gets a H. Ogilov is an interview, okay? But when I say on Tagalog, when I put on in front of Oglav, it gets a T dash. So on Tagalog, Ceart Galore. So this, okay, so why does that happen? So basically, this happens because some nouns, which are animal, okay, so noun, a person, place, or thing, some nouns are masculine and some nouns are feminine, okay? And we need to know the now, again, it is impossible for you to know every single noun and whether that noun is masculine or feminine because there's so many of them to remember, okay? But for the majority, okay, so for like I would say anywhere between 75 to 80% of them will follow the rules that I'm going to show you now. Okay. Now, some of them will like be, outside of that rule, but majority of them will be within the rule. So this is like step one. So this would be like step one of understanding like the Tishel Ginnajuk or harder things like that, okay? This is kind of where you need to start before you go on and you really get to grips with the Tishel Ginnajuk. So the first thing I want you to do is if you make like a grate, right? Or you can write them underneath each other, or if you wanted to have them side by side, you can. So first, we're going to look at things that are, so basically nouns that are normally masculine, and then we're going to have a look at nouns that are normally feminine, okay? So nouns that are masculine and then nouns that are feminine, okay? So that we're going to start off now with nouns that are masculine. And obviously, if you're stuck at any stage, please just write into the Zoom box and I can re-explain anything that needs to be re-explained, okay? So, things that are masculine. First of all, names and masculine things. So anything that is associated with a man will be Fearnshcanach, okay? So, for example, Michal, Liam, Sean, Daddy, Daddy-o, Ahar, Far, Mock. So, father, man, son, Sogert, priest. Yeah, we only have male priests at Cheer Shaw. Boohal, boy, uncle. Okay, so that's the first thing. Things that are generally male are masculine. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is jobs are normally masculine. Okay, so you'll see all the differences between here, or all the similarities. Fermor, Moontor, Ashtor, Mechnor, Inaltor, Fueltor, they're all masculine. Okay, now there's a few more then, but they're still jobs, they just look different. Kokra, masculine. Ultra, masculine. Togoli, masculine. So Kokra, cook. Ultra, nurse. Togoli, builder. Okay, so again, they're normally masculine, right? Now, this is when it gets a little bit more complicated. Okay, so the third rule or the third thing that are normally masculine are nouns that end in A for the N or I for the N. Okay, so I've shown you here, right? So what ends in A for the N? So on Cuson, the step, on Tardon, the stage, on Tauron, the song. Okay, now and then I for the N on Shikeen, the chicken, on Gordine, the garden, and then on Colleen. So the reason I have the extract or the little stars there is because Colleen is obviously a girl. However, it takes masculine rules, okay? So it's a masculine noun, right? So that's why there's no H in Colleen. It's just always on Colleen. Now, the only time you would see a H in it is if it's got to do with the Tishel Ginnajuk, okay? Other than that, it just stays as it is. It just stays as it is, essentially, okay? So that's the third one. So nouns that end in A for the N or I for the N. So I'm actually just going to highlight that there, okay? Right, A for the N and I for the N. Now, and then the last one is nouns that are usually broad. And I'm going to write broad in here. So Latin is broad. So what does that mean? So basically it means it has A, O, or U, okay, at the end, right before the consonant. So like we would call them consonant, right? So these are words that always end in a consonant, okay? So it ends in anything but, A, E, I, O, or U. However, there's a Latin vowel beside it. So like an A or an O or a U. Okay, so like that's the difference. So see here, like on chalk, okay, chalk, broad, on board, even though board ends with a D, the last vowel in it is O, so it makes it broad. On Durris, on solace, okay, all broad, all masculine, okay. So they're kind of the four major ones to look out for. Masculine things, okay, masculine people or masculine things, jobs, okay, nouns that end in A for the N and I for the N, and then nouns that are broad. So if you even want to write like cunts and quail, I'm going to write that in Zoom chat. So cunts and quail, or sorry, scrap that. It should be cunts and lahan. I'm getting ahead of myself. Cunts and lahan. Cunts and lahan is the correct one. Hate autocorrect on this computer. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing. So they're like all the things that are masculine. Okay, they're what to look for to be able to identify a noun as masculine. Now we're going to have a look at feminine and what, like, how do I identify a feminine noun? Okay, so again, I hope you're still with me, but if not, please just like send me a message. Okay, so things that are feminine. Right, so the first thing, again, it's very easy. Names and feminine things. So, and what do we mean by feminine things are like people, right? So, Moher, Driftfor, Inyin, daughter, Shanmoher, granny, Driftfor, sister, Moher, mother. Then you have like Moira, Evelyn, mommy, momo. Okay, so like the likes of Moira and Evelyn being feminine is like their Irish or their Irish names, so they can be changed. But say, for example, like myself and yourself, Gracie, so like Gracie or Danielle, they can't be changed, okay, because they're English names or French names or whatever. Okay, so that's the first one. Okay, now the second thing is countries and languages are usually feminine. Okay, now you can see here it breaks the rules for 3 countries. Okay, so Morocco, masculine. Sasana, which is England, masculine. And Canada, masculine. And one language is masculine, and that is Berla. Okay, so for example, like on Ronquiche, okay, is French, but on Berla is English. Okay, so you can see the difference of them there, even though they're both subjects, or sorry, they're both languages. So it breaks it for America, Sasana, and Canada, and then Berla is masculine as well. So I'm going to write here all masculine. Oh, writing it in the wrong place. Or sorry, oh yeah, they're all masculine. Masculine. Okay, so now going back to the third thing that is feminine. So 2-syllable, okay, nouns. I'm going to write here because that's really important. 2-syllable nouns that are ending in I for the OCH or EACHT, okay? However, with the brackets there, okay, that end in either I for the OCHT or just OCHT. Similar EACHT or just ACHT. So obviously the only difference there is one is like 2-syllable, you know, it looks like more of a 2-syllable ending than the other. So now remember, these words are 2 syllables. So like remember what we said masculine was. So chalk, right? Chalk is masculine. However, on Gaeltacht is feminine. It is 2 syllables and it ends similarly to how chalk ends, but it is 2-syllable, which makes it feminine. So on Gaeltacht, on Cuacht, on Timpelacht. Now, Ocht, EACHT or ACHT. So on Vitaloracht, on Shoppadoracht, okay, on Tiroliocht, right? So again, it is just, again, you need to learn these rules, okay? I don't expect you to know them straight away. Then the fourth time we see now this is an easy one, that we see feminine is if they end in O for the G or EOG, okay? And if they end in LANN, right? And that goes for any word. Now, there will obviously be exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, they're feminine. So on Inyo, on Vrogue, on Villog, on Ficterlin, on Clon, on Auerclin, okay? So again, you can see the patterns there. And then the last one is nouns that are usually slender. Okay, so we can't say all of them, just usually slender. So what do I mean by, so this is what I mean by cunson, quail. Okay, so it means there's a slender vowel at the end of the word before the consonant at the end. Okay, at the end of the word. No, before the consonant. Consonant at the end of the word. So you can see on Wanish ends in an S, okay, but it is slender, so IS, therefore Toshe Banishkanok. On Uber, on Ochud, on Kishton, on Leaf Roads, okay? So I say to my leaving certs, I do say, think of the fat man and the skinny lady. The fat man, he's masculine, okay, for the most part, things are broad, and then the skinny lady needs to be skinny and slenderized, okay, for the most part, and that's what makes them nouns feminine, okay? So now that we kind of have the gist on that, now we need to know what to do in order to change the rules, okay? So, or as in like to change so how do I know it's like, for example, how do I know it's on, sorry, that's wrong there, ignore that. So how do I know it's on van and not on ban? Okay, so I know ban is feminine, and I know the rules that takes. So that's what I'm going to show you now. So if you want to draw out this grid, okay, so this is a grid that I use, but I'm actually going to talk you through the grid. Okay, so I'm just going to give you 60 seconds there to draw the grid. Okay, and then I can like translate it into English for you, and you can like obviously do it however you want. Okay, so obviously I have this written in Irish, right? So this is like the start of the word, whether it's masculine and whether it's feminine, okay? And then I have it broken down into all the different sections. So nouns that start with consonants, nouns that start with vowels, nouns that start with D and T, and nouns that start with S, and then what happens. So anytime you see this, ag on ahru, okay, that basically means that there's no change. Okay, Aegon Ahru, you forget, you leave it, okay, don't touch it, okay? So hopefully you have that grid written out now. So we have, if you want to write it in just English now, you can, if you've drawn the grid out. So we have nouns that start with a consonant, cunson, okay? We have nouns that start with a vowel, gota, okay? We have nouns that start with D and T. So D and T kind of do their own thing. They don't take any change, okay, because the dentals are in question. So it kind of just stays how it is, right? So that's what the boat means. So you can see there in the Banishcook and the Fernishcook, nothing happens. All right. And then the last one is that starts with an S. Now, this is what catches a few people. So if a noun starts with an S and it is masculine, nothing changes to it. Okay. So it's similar to up here. Nothing changes. They're great. They don't need to change. Okay. However, if it is feminine and it begins with an S, and you must put a T, okay, actually attached to it. So on Tan Van, the old woman, on Tocton, the weak, okay? And then obviously just up here, when it starts with a noun that starts with a gota, you put a T fleshkeen. So again, then some people get confused between T fleshkeens and just T. So T fleshkeen is T dash, and then just T is when you're joining T onto the S, okay, of whatever word you're using. So you can see here that if a noun starts with a gota and it's masculine, you put the T on. right? So an theratus, an tifacuk, okay? However, if it's Bonnish Canuck, it's just an ash, no an ifig. Okay, so again, it's just something to be mindful of. But to be honest, when I did this in my 5th years today, it was so funny, like the amount of them that like knew this, like, you know, they were kind of saying the words and they were like, oh yeah, sure, that's, you know, they'd be like, oh yeah, sure, you wouldn't ever write it like that, you know, but we were practicing on it with verbs. And like they were like, oh yeah, sure, you'd never write that verb like that. So then that affirmed to them, okay, it must be Ferenc Canuck or Bonnish Canuck. Okay, so again, remember, you have a lot of this in your clicking. It might just have gotten a little bit lost in there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is the first thing I want you to do is I want you to just make a quick note. So you can even number them 1 to 16. And the first thing we're going to do is you're just going to say whether you think they are masculine or feminine. Okay, so again, you can like either write it in, I think I have a box down here for you. Yeah, I do. So if you want to write it in your box, like 1 to 18, whether it's feminine or masculine, you can do. Or if you want to write it in Zoom box as well, you can. Okay, so the first word we have is money. So is it going to be on target? No, on arrogant. Come on. So, Anna what, Lucy or Gracie? So all we need to do is, so it needs to be like this, on arrogant, okay? So the T only joins the word when it's S, okay? So come on. So the first one will be done for you. Okay, so I want you now to go down as far as 10, right? So I want you to go down as far as Beelin, and I want you to write 2 to 10 in your box. Okay, and then we'll correct them and then we'll do the last 8. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to just put on in front of it and then see, does the word change? So is it feminine? Should it get a H? Is it feminine? Should it get a T if the word is an S? If it begins with a vowel and it's masculine, should I need to put a T dash? Okay, so I want you to give just as far as 10 for me now. Just put on, so like I'll help you with the second one there. So I think is it Beelin? Oh no, it's van. Okay, so what will we do to on van? Okay, right. Lanaraig now gadi ivra de le the hull. Okay, right. So, as you know from doing this, it's hard, okay? And it does take a while for you to get the hang of it. So, on van, correct, okay? So, this one is correct, right? Van is feminine, so therefore it gets a H. So, when we think of our list, if it's feminine and it begins with a consonant, which ban does, it gets a H. If it begins with a gota and it's feminine, nothing happens. If it begins with an S, it gets a T attached to it if it's feminine. And if it begins with D or T, it gets nothing. Okay. Now, Humra, so remember I said think of like the fat man. So Humra, okay, looks quite broad. So therefore it is masculine. So it'd just be on Shomra. Okay, so then you have to say to yourself, is it on Shomra? No, on Tomra. And if it's not on Tomra and you know it's not, then you're like, okay, well, it must be masculine then. Now, Coed, similarly, when I say think of the fat man, so it's Cunson Lahan, right? So it has the D at the end and then it has the A, which is broad, making it masculine. So you just leave it as it is. So Mahu. Now, Ferrum, okay, as we can see, I is the last vowel in Ferrum, so that making it a consonant quail. And so therefore, when it's skinnier, I say think of the skinny woman on Iram. Okay, so Mahu, you have those two right. On Coed and then on Iram. Okay, now Sroj. So Sroj, when you take the H out of it, okay, the I is left, is the last vowel, okay, making it consonant quail, so making it skinny. So therefore it would be feminine, which means when you put on in front of it, when you put on in front of it, it gets a TS. On Trods, the street, okay, on Trods. Now, Custis, okay, Custos is actually masculine, meaning cost, okay? So therefore it gets no H, right? Now, different to that, Iver. So Iver, again, is slender, okay? So think of the skinny lady. So therefore it's feminine and nothing happens to it, okay? Laurelin is also feminine, but because it begins with an L, we cannot put in a shevu. And then Bialin. So you actually did have it right the first time, I noticed, but then you changed your tune, okay? So you were like, oh no, maybe the H. Because I know sometimes when we're not used to writing these, they do look weird. Yeah, so they do look weird and strange, and you're like, oh, that doesn't look right, but it actually is. So you would be putting a H in on violin. Carrot galore. So just to reiterate, ban feminine, Shomra and Coed masculine, firm feminine, Srods feminine, Custos, Custos masculine, Iver feminine, Laurelin, sorry, I spelled Laurelin wrong. Laurelin, feminine, and Bielin feminine, because they both end in Lann. Now, okay, right, Gracie, what I want you to go do now is, so obviously we've done down as far as Bielin. I want you now to go down and do as far as Orador, okay? So Orador. So we start with Filton. Now, again, it's broad, okay? It's a broad word. So what do you think it gets? Okay, so again, I want you to put in the ons. And then when you're done doing that, if you're writing them out, I then want you to type it out and send it to me and I'll see how you got on. Going through it. So when you wrote on Hyola, right, makes sense why you would do that, okay? Because that's what you're used to seeing. But a lot of the time that's like bar on Hyola, the top of the address, okay? However, when you just want to put the article in front of it and saying like the address, S doesn't get a H, right? So the rules for S, either it stays the same or it gets a T, it gets a T in front of it, like on Throds, right? But because Shola ends in ADH, right? So again, just to put it in a different color, that shows that it's broad. So the fat man, making it masculine. And when something is masculine, and it begins with a consonant, it doesn't get a H. So it's on Shola, okay? On Shola. So let's do the last three together. So first of all, we have Touristal, right? So Touristal. So the ending is Tal, right? So I'm just going to write it here first of all, right? Touristal. Now, it is an N, it begins with a T. Now remember, and D and T, they don't change whether they're masculine or feminine, okay? So it's going to be just on Thorstal. However, I need to know for myself, when I put it into the Tishel Ginnajuk, whether it's masculine or feminine, okay? So Thorstal, so AL making it broad, the fat man, okay? So broad, fat man. So therefore it's masculine, okay? Thorstal is masculine. Now we have a look of kahir, right? So kahir. So is kahir masculine or feminine? So again, I'm just going to write it out. So kahir. Okay, sorry, spelling it wrong there. So I probably still am spelling it wrong. Yeah. Kahir. Yeah, I have an extra O on it. So, okay, so kahir. Now, or makes it slender, so the skinny woman, okay? So therefore it's going to be, so when it's a consonant, when it begins with a consonant, okay? So a consonant is anything that isn't A, E, I, O, or U. When it begins with a consonant and it is feminine, it gets a H. Why do I keep putting in that up? An chathaoir. Okay. Now, and the last one. So orador. Okay. So orador. So orador can be a hard one, right? Because you're thinking, you know, oh, you're like orador, right? So I'm going to write it out again. Orador. And you're like, oh, it ends in I or. So like you're like skinny, yeah, like Danielle said, you know, if it's skinny, you know, it's a skinny lady, right? However, think about how it's spelt, right? And the ending of it, right? And like what I like to do with Irish, and again, but this takes practice, is like you're trying to match ones that you know are definitely like masculine or feminine and see the similarities, right? With other words. So for example, Múntóir, Ceoltóir, Inaltóir, Banistóir, Orador. They all sound similar. Now, Banistóir, Múntóir, Ceoltóir, Inaltóir, they all, you know that they're all masculine because they're all jobs. So therefore, Orador must be masculine because it's from the same family. It's wrote the same. Okay. So therefore, Toshe, it is masculine. So when it is masculine and it begins with a vowel, it's on Torador. Okay, on Torador. Now, I know these are very hard to make sense of, okay? These take, and we don't get enough time to practice grammar rules like this in school because your teacher just doesn't have time because they're trying to get through so much of the coursework. They just don't have time to get through it, okay? So what I want you to do, right, I really want you to get to grips with it. Obviously, it's recorded so you can look back at this whenever you want. But in your homework for this week, right, I'm going to show you what I've put in here. So what I want you to do. So practice using the article and adding séibhús correctly. Okay. Now, this exercise is a little bit easier because what I have here beside it is it tells you whether it's Fearnshcannock or Baninshcannock. So this just helps you practice. Okay, does it get a H? Does it get a T dash? Does the T join the S? You know, so it just helps you with that. And then next week, what we'll do is we'll build on this again, right? So we'll practice it again, but I'm also going to do the Mochanílach next week as well. Okay. Just to give ourselves time to sit, because again, as you know, there's so many marks going for grammar, okay, especially in the essay, which is worth 17% of your whole entire grade. So it is important that we kind of get used to this. And once you get the hang of it, you get the hang of it, and you'll always have the notes and you can look back and you can practice them. But yeah, I think it's an important one to practice for sure. So if you can get that to me, if you can get your homework, and look, if you can't, don't worry, we will practice them again next week. But I just included some there for you to practice yourself with the notes that you made today. Okay, so Shinné an Tachtain Seo. I know we kind of focused on nearly just one thing today, but I felt it was important, okay, because obviously grammar can be that bit harder, but obviously it's so important to focus on.